Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about bugs. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, would you say that a lot of bugs and technical issues is a sign of poor system design and inadequate testing? Yep, pretty much I would say. I would say that that is the most telltale sign of that things are not working within the software team. It's the thing that I tell people that is probably the biggest testament to how good your software developers are at their job. So to me, it's a little bit like mold or something like that, where if you like, if let's say that you're going to have someone build a house for you, or lay down some floors or something like that, right? So in the early days, like when the job is done and you sort of just look at things, it seems well done and so forth usually, because the thing about doing is like something like building a house or whatever, like appearances can be deceiving, because something can look really good and then after a few months the whole thing just collapses because you have termites or poor like materials, or mold has taken place, and like, or moisture or things like that. Things may not be apparently wrong immediately, and for software it works exactly the same thing. I mean, I even go as far as to say that if you have because I've had this conversation actually not that long ago with one of my coworkers. He has a few teams, and one of the teams that was fresh starting team that I helped set up. And so I told him what I usually tell managers when they're setting up teams and stuff like that. Now, as a customer, I can help. Like, you probably don't know exactly how to evaluate these things, but the thing that you should ask yourself now is, are things progressing at the speed that you feel is appropriate given the task that you have given them? And are the issues within the system like minimal or so forth and so on? Because this is a completely greenfield project, it's completely fresh. And so the reason why I tell him this is because if things are going poorly, like at a small scale, like we're talking about, that unless we have very specific systems that are very complicated, but in this case it wasn't a very complicated system. Like if your developers cannot perform in these early days, then you're never going to see an improvement. Basically, it's basically impossible to get them to improve at that point, unless we're like juniors and so forth, of course, but in this case it was mostly seniors and so forth. Then you can expect a degradation, not an increase, because people usually don't just get magically better at things unless they really work at it, and which is usually not the case for most software developers. And it's the same thing with because when things are not working at a small scale, there, as I like to say, like, what are you going to blame? Like, I've had this conversation with some software developers where, like, I even remember it today, to this day. It was a small scale system where I had a so-called senior level consultant who's been working for 20 years or some silly gigantic number like that. And so when I joined the team, in this case I was a technical product manager, I and we were talking about like a system that is maybe a few thousand lines of code. It's not things huge or anything major in any way. And there are constant regressions, constant bugs, like all the time. Like, we spend more time fixing bugs that are related to various features that he has implemented. And so I ask, and I tell them like, can you because I noticed that there were no unit tests or anything like that. And I said, we should probably write some tests for this. And he said, well, we have never had any requirement for that before. And so I asked him, well, can you tell me, is it me as the customer? Am I supposed to know your job so well that I need to communicate to you that you need to do things in a proper way so the system is working? And he gets very frustrated with me because he apparently feels the need, like I'm assuming now that he felt blamed for this, which in this situation, like, I'm not going to dilly dally with these. Like, I have to, because you're in a professional environment, but I will make it very clear that even though we have a no blame culture, that doesn't excuse people from being incompetent when it comes to being competent and like knowing what you're supposed to do. And I told them very plainly, and I said the same thing to to the manager, that if he is a 20-year veteran and he can't figure out what he needs to do, because testing is not, as I said, like I've said this to you guys before, testing is not something that is just a checkbox that you do. It's something you do in order to make sure that the system works. So if the system is constantly broken, I know that people like don't like to hear this, guys, but we are software developers. Our job is to make the thing work. I don't know of a single goddamn carpenter or construction worker or so forth, like, or any company is gonna, like, if my building collapses, we take the builder to court for that. And software development, like, it doesn't matter what you're buying, guys. Like, there is no situation where the customer, like, the specifications are so complicated that, you know, it excuses the fact that the thing is not working. Usually companies take responsibility for these sorts of things, and craftsmen have to a certain degree, like within reason, of course, take responsibility for the quality of the work that they are producing. So if you have a lot of bugs and technical issues and so forth, as I like to say, code is not magic. You have caused the situations. The programmers have caused the situation, and I already know there's a bunch of people are going to tell me, yeah, but the product manager have unspecified stories. There's like they push us through with hard deadlines, etc. Yeah, there's a million things that can go wrong. Absolutely, and that's why I'm saying, like, it's not just the software developer's fault. But I hope at the very least we can agree on that if your system is not working well and so forth, whoever is to blame is involved in the creation of the software. Whether that is that you have a customer that is unreasonable or not, that I leave unsaid. So there's blame to go around, but I don't really like this idea that some software developers have, which is like that you are, for some reason, excluded from the range of of people to take a share of the blame when things are not working in the software or so forth. Like, my favorite one is, and I've had, like, again, not that long ago, I had a conversation with a tech lead for his team who says, I don't trust our unit tests. And I go, you are the goddamn tech lead. So if your software developers are not writing tests, for example, or doesn't know how to do that, who is supposed to teach them? Well, you are. But for some reason, this responsibility is like, it's not something that comes natural to all people for whatever reason. As I said, and again, like, if you have a company who commits fraud, or like you have employees in a company that performs in a certain way, or like you put your business in a bad like legal situation, you have to take some accountability for that as the manager, or so forth and so forth. And I argue that the same thing with our software developers. If you try your best and you do things correctly and you have all the things that you need and so forth, well, then things should be working out. And even if you have people saying to you that you have to work faster, so forth, like, it's a bit like, in my opinion at the very least, being a doctor or something like that. You can tell a doctor, like, get angry with a doctor for saying, like, if let's say you break your leg and they say, oh, it's going to heal in X amount of months or like a year or something like that, and you go, no, that's not going to work for me, I need to be done in 2 weeks. And then the doctor should, in that situation, basically say, well, yeah, I'm sorry, but this is how long it's going to take and so forth. Like, you basically take the stance points that this is what's the reality. It's the same thing with construction working or so forth and so forth. A customer can put any demands on you, but you should at the very least be a professional that has a fairly good understanding of what things do you need to do in order for things to work. Because, as I've said before, guys, there is no customer, no patient, no whatever, like anybody who's ever bought a service or gotten help from anybody, who goes and asks for something and then says, yeah, like, and then pushes for like a faster delivery, and then is okay with that at the expense of a faster shipping date, the thing doesn't work. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you have constant technical issues or like things like that, then yeah, you probably have a problem. Like, it's the trifecta. You have either a poor system design, or you have inadequate questing, or you have shitty software developers. And I like to go back to I'll push it all the way back to that you don't have the people that you need in order to do this usually. If your small scale product isn't working, or like your software developers are constantly experiencing issues and stuff like that, it's, in my experience at the very least, usually the case that they are in a unable to deal with the situation, or like they need help from someone more experienced and so forth. It's a little bit like sports, in my opinion, at the very least. Like if you have sports team that don't perform, and like they're not winning the matches and stuff like that, you can make up any, like you can, like you can skirt around the issues and like make people take pressure off people and say that, oh, you're doing your best and so forth. Yes, absolutely. No, everybody is, it deserves respect and human dignity and stuff like that. But if you're not getting the results, it's absolutely the case. In some situations, you have a really difficult situation where very few people would have the skills to deal with it, but it's still solved the same way. To this day, I have never seen like a code base or a situation which couldn't be fixed by the right person. And sometimes that is the thing that I tell management and so forth, and they don't want to hear that, of course. And I go, we can teach these people testing, we can show them all the ropes, and we can train them and so forth, but the cost is going to be enormous. It might be better for you to just switch these people out and try to find people who are like up to the task of solving this issue. And so in my experience, at the very least, the way to deal with it is that you try to introduce things like proper testing, like the things that are necessary. And this is the balancing act, right? Because if you have really shitty software developers, that won't help. Because like if they can't write for working software, and they're like not writing testers, like they're unfamiliar with that, that's probably not going to fix it. Because writing tests, this is something you, as I said in my little story there, the writing of the test is so that you will make sure that the software is working. So if you don't understand that the testing is not for me, like for the manager or for like whoever, like it's not for anybody else, it's for you. It's like in math, like using an extra pen and paper to write down the equation or calculator. It's a tool that you use in order to get the right answer. If you don't have people who understand that, then writing tests may not actually help you all that much. Have a great day.